So we want to thank everyone for joining us for Dylan's senior exhibition of mastery. He will give you kind of an overview of everything as we go along. Is this the first time you've seen one of these before?
Yes.
Awesome. So he's going to orient you. I don't really need to do any of that, but you have already accessed his website there, and we will post this video along with a link to his website and his presentation. So that's all stays on my website, so you can access it, elsewhere, and share that with friends and family as you wish. All right, ready to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to my senior mastery. Thank you all for coming. Today I will be diving into a data analysis of traffic along my route to AEST. So for my panel members, I have my mother, Melissa Schaefer. She is a paraprofessional at Myrtle Beach Middle School. We have James Wino. He's a Chief Information Officer at Diamond Chemical. We have Miss Mindy Penn, my informatics major teacher. And then joining us online, we have Dr. Anna Mukamal. She is an assistant professor of digital culture and design at Coastal Carolina University. And we also have Dr. David Yancey, an associate registrar for information systems, also at CCU. But before I dive into what I have spent my time on this past semester, I just want to give an overview of what informatics is. So informatics is essentially data science. We use skills such as data location, data cleaning, data analysis, data visualization in order to create a product for a client. So we use spreadsheets, databases, data visualization, etc. So in class, we are given group projects. So what we start with is an entry document. This is a letter from a hypothetical client detailing what product or problem they would like solved. We start with a team contract. This is a document in which each team member agrees to certain responsibilities and roles that they will complete during the project. Then we create a design brief, which details to the client how we're going to solve their problem and the steps we're going to take. We each make our own prototype, and then we combine the best aspects of each prototype to create a team prototype for the client. Then we write a technical report in which we detail the solution that we created and then define some technical terms that the client needs to know. And then we present our product to the client, convincing them that our product is the one that they should use and that it will help them in the future. So overall, we use spreadsheets, databases, and tools such as like ArcGIS and Tableau in order to show to the client what they would like created. So now I want to get into some breath work. I want to take you through some of the projects I've completed in my time in informatics, and at the end I will recap some 21st century skills that I've learned. So starting with Informatics 1, this is the first main project that we completed, the Bath & Body Works spreadsheet. So our goal for this project was to display inventory data on a sheet in Microsoft Excel for Bath & Body Works. So how my prototype works is you entered an ordered date in the green, and then you enter the day after that in the received and sold category, and it will show you the price and quantity of the items you would like. So this project was a bit of a struggle at first because our team thought that we had to solve inventory. All we had to do was use the VLOOKUP formula in Excel, which would gather data from one sheet and then place it where we would like it to be in another sheet. So through this project, I really learned to use problem solving. Now, I've been using problem solving for all of my educational career, but in this course I learned something called just-in-time teaching. So what that is we are left to figure out a problem on our own. So we go through that struggle, and then if we get stuck, eventually then our teacher steers us in the correct direction. So this really helps me to think on my feet and dive into a problem myself. I also, in that same vein, I learned to ask questions. This was very important, whether that's to the client or the teacher or other classmates. Asking questions is a very important part of informatics to ensure that you are giving the client exactly what they need. So also in Informatics 1, we had the Pearson Testing Centers project. So this was the first informatics project I completed on my own. So what we had to do for this was we were given a database by Pearson of the locations of their testing centers, and we had to determine where new centers should be opened. So what we had to do was gather another source of data on our own and compare those. So what I did was I gathered the locations of every college in the United States. I mapped the colleges and the testing centers on the top using a tool called ArcGIS. And then I used Microsoft Access to create a ratio of colleges per testing center. So if the ratio is higher, there are more colleges per testing center in that state. So testing centers need to be open there. If the ratio is lower, then testing centers do not yet need to be open there. So through this, how I created this on the bottom is I used a query to find exactly which states and colleges and testing centers I'd like, and then a report to show this information. So what a query is essentially a question that you're asking to the database using code such as SQL. So I asked the database which states have a high ratio of colleges per testing center, and then it gave me this information. Then I put that into a report, which a report just allows you to show this information in any format that you would like. So this project helped me gain proficiency in presentation software with data visualization, and it helped me locate and combine data sets by finding a database on my own instead of being given. So moving on to Informatics 2, this was one of the first projects we did in this course, logic-based queries. So our client was an insurance company, and we had to assess the most important risk factors among their customers that would affect their insurance costs. So the two factors that we determined made a customer the riskiest were having less education and age in being younger. So through this project, I learned to think critically because I had to, our team had to determine that these were the two biggest factors that affected insurance, because there are many different factors. As well as I also gained more experience in Microsoft Access by creating a database, by creating a dashboard which allowed me to combine my queries and reports into one user-friendly interface for the client to see. And I also learned to communicate and present better to the client because we had to convince them that these two factors were in fact the most important that would affect their customers. So then also in Informatics 2, we had the Etherson database, as we call it. It was a CTE inventory database for our web and digital communications teacher here at AST, Ms. Etherson. So we were given a version of this database, and we had to clean it up to ensure that each part worked properly in order for Ms. Etherson to provide a report to the state for each computer, tablet, etc. So this project was a struggle because there were a lot of different parts. So we had to ensure that each barcode for each item worked correctly, scan each barcode into the database, create an end-of-year report, a disposition report. There were several other things. We also had to make sure that the database was secure so that only Ms. Etherson could access it. So through this project, we also worked as an entire class of 6 people as opposed to smaller groups. So I had to learn to communicate with my fellow classmates to make sure that each part was completed in a timely and complete manner. And I also gained more experience in creating specific queries by combining multiple data sets and finding exactly which table I need out of the database. And I also gained experience working with a real-world client in Ms. Etherson instead of a hypothetical client. So moving on to Informatics 3, which is what I was just in last semester. The first project we did was the movie ticketing system. So our goal for this project was to display the number of movie theater tickets available on a website. So this information had to be updated in real time, which means we had to have our database online as opposed to using Microsoft Access. And we also had to create a user-friendly front end for the user to see the number of tickets. This project was also a struggle for myself and my group. It took us over a month to complete because there were a lot of parts to this, lots of trial and error. I would say one of the things I learned in this was I learned HTML, PHP, and SQL, which are coding and markup languages, but what I really found out was that I like to use HTML. I like to design websites. So this could be something that I can focus on in the future in my career. Through this, there was also a lot of trial and error because we had to constantly refresh our code to ensure that it would function properly and display the right information in the right place on the website. And we also had to make sure that we could actually upload that data through using the proper internet, which I will get into soon. So also in Informatics 3, I had the Kona Ice Survey app project. So for this project, we had to create a mobile survey app for Kona Ice to determine which flavors were the most popular and least popular among customers. So through this, this was a project of trial and error as well, because at first we used MIT App Inventor, and we tried to store the data through TinyDB, Firebase DB, spreadsheets, just whether that's built into the app or on an external spreadsheet. None of them seemed to work. So we had to switch to using Thunkable, and when we did that and used a spreadsheet that we connected to Thunkable, then we were able to store that data. So through this, I gained experience with data collection because I had to create a spreadsheet that would directly store real-world data of real people taking the survey onto a spreadsheet. But more importantly, I also further continued my design of the project because through the movie ticketing website, I learned that I like to design. So through this, I created what I consider one of my best design prototypes. On the left, you can see the block coding that goes into it, and then on the right was one of the pages of the survey app. So just recapping some 21st century skills that I learned along the way. I did learn to be adaptable because, say on that survey app, I had to switch to using Thunkable instead of MIT App Inventor. I also had to experiment with the spreadsheet because some of the data did not align in the correct column. So I had to adapt and learn how to update my code and block code. Also in my senior mastery, I had to change exactly which source set data I was using and how to graph that, which we will get into more soon. I learned to think critically by creating those logic-based queries in the insurance company project, determining which two factors were the most important, which were age and education, and then communicating those to the client. I learned to be creative by designing a front-end website in the movie ticketing project that would allow the user to easily see the tickets in a large enough font and in a user-friendly way. I learned to communicate largely in the movie ticketing website because I worked with my teammates Eddie and Mason. We each primarily were given a different coding language to use, and the coding languages quite literally had to communicate with each other. So I had to make sure that I was communicating with my teammates to ensure that the website would function properly. I learned to collaborate, mainly on the Etherson database project, working with my entire class. I had to constantly check in with them, frequently check in with them to ensure that each piece of the project was completed in a timely manner to how Ms. Etherson liked it to be completed. I also learned to problem solve. So, as I hinted at earlier, in the movie ticketing website, some of the components of the website would not upload properly using file transfer protocol due to the HDS Wi-Fi blocking this feature. So I had to use my personal hotspot to upload this data. So I learned to find a solution to a problem that Horry County Schools was blocking. So after all of these projects, it was time to research a topic that I wanted to dive into for a semester that impacted me, in which I could show that I considered a project that I consider important to me, like traffic. So my rationale for this project was largely based on personal experience, but before I get into that, I want to ask all of you guys a couple questions. Who here hates traffic? Yeah. And who here has noticed that there are a lot more people around this area as of late? Yeah, I'm sure we can all agree on that. I too noticed these factors, and it created way more cars on the road. So I've been driving myself to school since early last year, and I have noticed that my commute time has significantly increased with more cars on the road. I also got some input from family members, like my mom, who definitely agrees that the traffic has increased around here, and it's caused all of us frustration. So I wanted to find a solution to this mess of traffic. So my main objectives for this project, I wanted to identify the factors that would affect not only the traffic on the road, but also the traffic signals that would cause a backup of traffic at each light. I wanted to locate and analyze local traffic data to find out if there has in fact been an increase of cars and at which intersections. And then I wanted to research and propose solutions, whether that be through technology like self-learning AI or the levels of government that manage each road and signal. So through this research, by far the biggest factor impacting traffic was population growth. As you can see, Horry County's population grew by 41.7% in just 12 years, from 270,000 people to over 383,000, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So, as you can imagine, this would put a huge strain on the roads. And as you can see from this table, it shows the 2022 Horry County population projected to 2029 if the amount of growth each year stayed the same. So this projected growth shows that there would be over 483,000 people in 2029 in Horry County, which is nearly double the 2010 population. So you might be able to imagine this is a huge increase in the number of cars. Well, let me help you visualize that a little bit better. This chart shows the Horry County population growth from 1810 to 2029. We can start to see an exponential increase around the 1980s, but if you compare about 2020 to the 2029 projection, you can see a huge exponential increase within the decade. So this has definitely put a strain on the roads and infrastructure around the county. And I learned through this that, of course, using a chart is better than just using a table to visualize data. So then I also went to analyze some other factors that have affected the traffic. A large factor I found was bureaucracy, which involves local versus state-owned roads. So I was given insight into this by interviewing Mr. Robert Wolfong, who is a civil engineer at Development Resource Group. He gave me some insight into which roads are managed by which level of government. So roads like US 17, Joe White, 21st Avenue, etc., those are mainly managed by SCDOT, which is the South Carolina Department of Transportation. But some roads like Carolina Forest Boulevard or Farrow Parkway or River Oaks, they are managed by local municipalities, which means that the levels of government aren't necessarily communicating with each other, which would not make the signals and roads as efficient as they could be. Another factor was speed limits. So of course, higher speed limits would in theory make traffic move faster, but lower speed limits are found to be safer for drivers. In fact, a Michigan study showed that increasing the speed limit from 70 to 75 miles per hour resulted in a 17.2% increase in accidents, and over 37,000 deaths were linked to raising speed limits in the past 25 years. As another law I considered was the traffic law of right on red, so allowing drivers to stop and then make a right turn at a red light. Studies have also been done on this to show that when right on reds were banned in urban areas, there was a decrease in pedestrian deaths. So although allowing a right on red and allowing higher speed limits would in theory optimize traffic, it can generally be agreed that driver and pedestrian safety is a more important concern. So then I wanted to look into some problems that have arisen based on the increased traffic. A huge problem was air pollution. According to a study from the University of Surrey, particulate matter concentration increased by 29 times at a still red light than during free-flowing traffic. As there are more cars on the road, of course there will be more drivers backed up at red lights for longer, which will expose them to more air pollutants and worsen their health. Also, more factors with this was including driver safety. There are generally have been more accidents with more drivers on the road, and as we just looked into the traffic laws like right on red and speed limits, those do have a factor in the deaths of drivers and pedestrians. So not only is the safety of drivers and pedestrians being impacted, but also their health. So it can be seen that increased traffic has definitely been a problem that impacts our entire community. So then I wanted to look into some potential technology, the current technology that we currently have, and then potential technology that could be implemented in the future. So Mr. Wolfong also gave me some insight onto the technology on Horry County roads. He said that loop detectors and actuated traffic signals are mainly used around the county. Loop detectors, if you've seen them before, are those grooves in the road near an intersection. So these are able to sense when a car is coming and then change that signal based on how many cars are waiting at the intersection. Another type of technology is a time signal, which is just a simple pattern that does not sense when cars are coming. However, these are not really used locally, according to Mr. Wolfong. They are used less than 15% statewide. So what I found was that rather than timers, most of the lights already have a form of technology that helps them sense vehicles. But I've found that even with this technology, the lights are definitely not as efficient as they could be. So I wanted to find a better solution to optimize traffic. And I found several different potential solutions that could be implemented. Most of which are self-learning AI. So one aspect was smart chips, which are installed at traffic lights, and they were found to optimize traffic better than if another lane was added to the road. There's also a technology called Marlin, which it uses machine learning to detect when cars are coming, and then optimize those signals based on the volume of traffic that it sees in a given day. There was also a statewide system in Utah that used cameras, radars, and loop detectors to optimize traffic through data measurements and real-time adjustments. There was also a study done by Texas A&M University that used a self-learning system with deep neural networks. So how this worked was the self-learning AI managed the traffic, and it was rewarded for lower commute times and then punished for higher commute times, allowing it to actively update among increasing traffic volume. There is also to consider self-driving cars, which could communicate with each other on the road, and then cars communicating with signals, such as informing the driver when a signal has turned green. So after analyzing every factor I found that went into the increased traffic, I then went into actually locate the traffic data. So what I did was I found a spreadsheet online that gave me the traffic counts for all of South Carolina in a given year. And then I had to import this data into Microsoft Excel and trim out all the information I didn't need, meaning I only kept the data from Horry County. So what I did was I found that data from the past 3 years and just downloaded the spreadsheets. But before that, the data was in comma separated values, meaning I had to copy and paste that data into Excel. So I gathered data from 2010 to 2023. And let me show you that spreadsheet right now. So this spreadsheet, it's measuring the AADT for each intersection for each year. AADT is annual average daily traffic. It essentially measures how many cars drive by a given station in one day. So gathering the data from 2010 to 2023, it allowed me to directly compare which roads have increased in their volume of traffic. And the data I kept included the station number, which is a location along the road, the AADT, the year, and then the location that corresponded to that station. So now, after I located the actual data traffic counts for each road, I wanted to visualize this data to see if there has in fact been an increase in traffic on the road. So this is a chart I found on usafacts.com using US Census Bureau data. It shows the population in Horry County from 2010 to 2022. And you can see an exponential increase in population. So if population has exponentially increased, you would expect drivers on the road, the number of cars to exponentially increase as well, right? Well, not really. So what this graph is this was the first comparison I tried to make in Tableau. I filtered out every road that had the name US 17 in it, and this doesn't show all of the roads, but it shows some of them, a snapshot. So I analyzed the years of 2013, 2018, and 2022, the number of vehicles on the road for each. So you go from green to orange. So some intersections may show an increase in traffic, like this one does show a slight increase, but some of them actually show a decrease. Like as you can see, for station 163, the green of 2013 is higher than the orange of 2022. So overall, this was inconclusive using a testing protocol. So what I did was, a testing protocol essentially tells you when you have made what you want to make. So if I see an exponential increase in traffic on the road, that corresponds with the exponential increase in population. But since I did not see an exponential increase from this chart, I had to keep going. I had to create a better graph that would better represent my experience. So what I did was I focused on 5 key intersections along and near my commute to AST. And I created a chart that definitely better represents my experience. Here, I analyzed just the years 2022 versus 2023. So you can see a clear increase at every intersection here except International Drive, which I will touch on a bit later. Especially at Ferrosakasi, you can see an increase, which is around where I merge onto US 17 near Market Common. You can see that in 2022, the traffic count was about 75,000, and that went all the way up to nearly 80,000 in just 1 year. So through this, you can see that the majority of these intersections have significantly increased in traffic. But this just shows 1 year. I did want to get a bigger picture of the traffic increase in Horry County. So this shows my 5 different stations for 5 different years. So I analyzed 2010, 2014, 2018, 2022, and 2023. So through this, you can see clear exponential trends. For example, Grissom Parkway right here. In 2010, the average traffic was just over 30,000, and that increased to over 54,000 from 2010 to 2023. You can also see on Ferrosakasi, interestingly enough, the amount of traffic decreased from 2010 to 2018, but then the past 2 years are much higher than any year prior, with 2018 being about 45,000 and 2023 being nearly 80,000 vehicles on the road. So this might paint a clear picture to you guys that traffic has certainly increased. However, I'm not sure how well this would convince a policymaker. I'm not sure if this sticks out enough to them that there is a clear problem. But maybe this will. So this graph is a net change in the number of vehicles on the road from 2022 to 2023. And what that means is it's the AADT of 2023 minus the AADT of 2022. It's how many more vehicles are now on the road. So, for example, at the Faro-Sockasty merge, there are about 3,900 more vehicles on the road in 2023 compared to the year prior. And all of the first 4 stations show a clear increase in the number of vehicles. I did want to point out the outlier of International Drive that decreased by about 600 vehicles from 2022 to 2023. Although it might not be clear why, this could be because people are taking different routes to where they need to go, such as River Oaks Drive or Carolina Forest Boulevard. But this does show just a slight decrease in traffic. Meanwhile, the other intersections do show a clear exponential increase. So then I wanted to compare 2 more years. So the graph on the left is the net change from 2018 to 2023. The graph on the right is from 2010 to 2023. So I did want to make it clear that for the graph on the right, for example, it's 2023 AADT minus 2010 AADT, not taking into account anything in between. So I think through these an even larger net change can be seen from some of the intersections. So as I addressed earlier, the Faro-Sockasty area had more vehicles in 2010 than 2018. So for 2010, you can see a 23,000 vehicle increase between then and now. But from 2018, you can see an increase of over 33,000 vehicles in just a 5-year period. Now, I don't need to tell you that this is unsustainable and creates huge unnecessary backups on the road. Another intersection, Grissom Parkway, 2018 to now in just 5 years, there was an increase of 22,000 vehicles, but from 2010, over 28,000 more vehicles on the road in 2023 compared to 2010. So I think these graphs definitely would convince a policymaker that there is in fact an issue with the increased traffic on the road. So now I want to show you my dashboard that I created in Tableau using or containing a lot of these graphs that I just showed you. Let me make it full screen. Yeah, so I combined the overall AADT graph, which shows 4 of my different stations. International Drive was left out due to having no values, meaning the data was not recorded before 2022, so it just shows 4 of the stations. And then also my net change graph. So this gives you a clear together visualization of the traffic increase around the area. But one feature of Tableau that I've learned is that it can be interactive. You can use filters to show exactly the type of data you want. So I also created an interactive dashboard. This allows you to filter exactly what year and what station number you want to compare. So I am going to add station 116. It is a bit slow, bear with me. Right there. So as you can see, that is much lower than other stations. Although there is a slight increase, there's very few vehicles on the road. So going into the spreadsheet, I found out, if you can see, that Station 116 is US 501 to SC 319, Highway 319. So this is a location out in rural Horry County near Aner, and generally tourists do not drive on that road. It's just a select group of locals, so there would in fact be a much lower population around it. Going back to my dashboard. So you can also change the years that you want to analyze. So let's say I only wanted to analyze the past 5 years. Okay, so now we can see 2018 to 2023, just a yearly change. This might paint a bit of a different picture. You can see a more consistent and sudden increase at the Ferrosakasti merge, with 2018 through 2021 having similar traffic counts, and 2022 suddenly increasing to a severe degree. So you can change which years you want to analyze to see which period of time you'd like to see. You can also change the location. So through this, all of you, can pick the intersections that impact where you live to see if there has been a significant increase in traffic in your area. And I wanted to point out, this can also be done through the net change graph, also using filters in Tableau. So you can paint a better picture if one particular intersection has significantly changed. So after all this, I wanted to propose a solution after determining that there is in fact a problem with local traffic. So I came up with a few different ideas that I think should all be implemented. Mainly, I think that all traffic signals should be managed at one level of government in order to ensure proper communication. I think this should be done through the state level using SC-DOT, because this will allow signals to be optimized both within the county and between counties. And we do have evidence that this would work. In North Carolina, they have been trying to manage each signal at the same level of government, and this has shown reduced commute times and better communication. I also think, technology-wise, the county should test and implement self-learning AI technology, because these have been shown to best reduce commute times out of all the forms of technology use. And I think we should start with certain intersections near US 17 where a greater number of people commute. I also think that since pollution has significantly increased, we should implement a no idling law. So, for example, in New York City, they have a no idling law in which you are not allowed to idle your vehicle for more than 3 minutes, and that's no more than 1 minute if you're outside of a school. So if we implemented a law similar to that around Horry County, this would reduce the pollution exposure that people are having to breathe in, because it will take a while for the backups at red lights to reduce. So in the meantime, I think this would be a practical solution. I also think we should educate drivers about the optimal ways to accelerate on the road. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but there has been found that there is an ideal amount of time to accelerate to the speed limit and to ensure that you hit most of the green signals. So if every driver did this, this would allow for smoother driving on the road. It would prevent the drivers who want to go much slower from clashing with the aggressive drivers who want to speed, so which would also improve driver safety. In the meantime, I do think we should make key adjustments through traffic surveys. So although these surveys would have to happen quite frequently due to the constantly changing population, I do think it is important to conduct these surveys, because this problem impacts our whole community, and frequent surveying is in fact worth it to improve the roads around the county. But I did want to address some constraints with my solution. Money and time are huge. implementing self-learning AI, as you can imagine, would be very expensive. So, and it would take a long time, several years, if not over a decade, for this to occur. So, the county would need to, and the state would need to invest a large amount of money and time into researching and implementing these solutions. There's also the constraint, as I touched on the constantly increasing number of vehicles on the road, which would make surveying impractical. And since we will not immediately have self-learning AI, the signals will never fully be in real time, the most optimized at that moment, until we do have that self-learning AI. So that is a problem that we're going to have. However, this is a significant issue in our community, and I do think that we should invest in AI technology. We should invest in frequent surveying to improve the health, well-being, and experience of locals. But it would also improve the experience of tourists, because Myrtle Beach obviously gets a large number of tourists each year. So if they have a better experience on the road, they will want to come back to Myrtle Beach and not know it for having very bad traffic. So this would propose an economic and well-being solution. So after all that, I just want to touch on my experience and growth at the academy. Through the informatics major, I learned a lot about data visualization, location, cleaning, as I just showed you. And I learned to problem solve throughout each course in informatics. And I did vastly improve my presentation skills. I'm sure all of you know I'm very introverted and very quiet. So I learned to communicate with a client formally. I learned to project my voice, and I learned to articulate exactly the point I'm trying to make. I also discovered that I want to focus on data science in my future career. Before coming to AAST, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but this experience in informatics has given me a pretty good idea. And overall, I've definitely enjoyed my time here at AAST. I enjoy that you get to focus on a particular subject area, a major, while also getting a all-around great education in a great community of people. And I did want to give some advice to any juniors who may watch this. I want you to be open to new experiences, and I want you to not be afraid to pivot. At the academy, and especially in informatics, you're going to be introduced to a lot of different projects and experiences, and you're going to have to change exactly what you want to do in that project. You're not going to immediately know what to do. So I just advise you to be open to new experiences. So for my future plans, I will be attending Duke University. I'm very grateful that I was accepted. I will be majoring in a double major in mathematics and computer science, or doing an interdepartmental major between the two subjects involving data science. I am still undecided on my exact career, but it will involve data science, math, and computer science. And I did want to mention that I will be on the pep band, so I will be at the basketball game. And I want to make some acknowledgments. I would like to thank Mrs. Mindy Penn for being an amazing informatics teacher, introducing me to data science. I'd like to thank Mr. Rob Wilfong for giving me some insight into local technology and levels of government around Horry County. I'd like to thank Dr. Anna Mukamal for providing me with some ideations for my senior mastery, such as behavioral economics, how drivers function on the road, and making me consider self-learning AI. I'd like to thank Dr. David Yancey for introducing me to subjects like roundabouts and different roads that are being built around the area, so just helping me think about some additional factors on the road. I'd like to thank my mom, Melissa Schaefer, for supporting me through all these years and dealing with my complaining and stress. I'd like to thank James for being an amazing person and helping me out with IT stuff. I'd like to thank my team members who are not here, but I'd like to thank Mason and Eddie for just being amazing team members throughout my 2 years in informatics and making my experience at the academy that much better. So thank you for coming. I will now open the floor to any questions.
First, we'll give you a round of applause. How about that? Awesome. So we'll give everyone gets a moment to ask questions or make comments, and we always start with friends and family. So I'll turn the camera just so that they can see you as well. Mom?
I did have a question about when you were showing your AADT, is that what it's called? Your graph. And you showed how certain areas might have actually decreased in traffic. Did you look into that at all? Was there any component in that about the way in which Horry County, especially the Myrtle Beach area, is being developed? How there are areas like where we live that are newly developed and areas that are no longer really being touched anymore? Does that have any bearing on the traffic data?
I told you that question was coming.
Yes, I did consider that. So at first I filtered out every road that had US 17 on it, which included the bypass and Kings Highway. So a lot of new housing developments are being built and were being built in areas like Market Common and Carolina Forest. So intersections near downtown Myrtle Beach might actually see a decrease in traffic due to cars traveling in a different direction, as well as you can see International Drive actually decreased between the past year. This could also be because people now live in different areas, so they need to take different routes in order to get where they need to go.
Mr. James, you want to chime in?
When you were looking at the safety data, did you take into account speed differential and if there had been changes in upper and lower speed limits? And would that affected safety in the increase during 2010 and 23?
I did not analyze the specific speed increases within the past decade. I looked at a more big picture perspective across like 25 years. I did look into several studies, and they all showed that higher speeds were more dangerous among highways. This was mostly in the 1900s through the 1990s through the 2000s. So it would be a good idea to look into the 2010s, how speed limits have impacted driver safety.
Or if they've really changed much since.
Yeah.
That was my main question, is if there hasn't been a big change or not.
Yeah, I looked into locally, there has not been a change in speed limits on most intersections around the area.
All right, we'll go to our online folks. Dr. Yancey, you want to chime in?
First, I would like to say this was fantastic. It was just absolutely incredible to watch the entire journey through your entire time here at AASC. I am going to tell you, you're going to love college. You're just going to soak it up. I can already tell from your progression when you started to now as you're ending. I think you're really going to have a great time. So I had a couple of questions for you and then like a couple of comments. One thing I noticed in your ADT graphs are the different years at the intersections. Had you considered, so it's measuring traffic at that intersection, which is a constant measurement, right? It's measuring traffic at the same intersection year after year after year. Had you considered changes in the area? For example, I noticed you noted the River Oaks International decrease in traffic. Did you take any into account that they had expanded Carolina Forest Boulevard in that time period? Or, for example, when you said there was a big increase in the Faro Parkway. So that's where my kid's school is. I feel you. Right? It's a huge increase. The exchange between Faro Parkway and Socastee Boulevard was built years ago. So there wasn't really any external change. So as the population is increasing, that throughput is just increasing. So I wondered if you had considered the changes to the roads that happened in those intervening years.
I had not really looked into exactly which roads have changed. I was aware that Faro Parkway had been built for around almost a decade now. I mainly considered that there were many more houses being built around where I live in my community, which I know that would increase the number of people going to merge onto US 17. I did consider if they were building any roads in the Carolina Forest area and how that would impact International Drive traffic. I knew there were a lot of housing developments being built and still being built around the Carolina Forest area, which I think would increase traffic among those areas, but maybe not specifically on International.
Very cool. And then a couple of kind of question comments for you, just kind of reflecting on your experience. One of the things I heard you talk about that you had learned through all these different projects was kind of that iterative design and modifying and adjusting as you're running into problems. So you talked about, I was going to use this application to do the data from the survey, and then we weren't, right? Horry County Schools networks were like, no, you're not going to do that. Do you feel like you've gotten more comfortable hitting those roadblocks?
Yes, I definitely have been more comfortable with that. Often in school projects before informatics, if something was not working, I would feel like giving up. I would get very frustrated, but I think through my time in informatics, I've learned to just keep going, keep experimenting, keep trying to find a solution. I haven't been as discouraged in trying to keep working as I would have been previously.
That's fantastic. And kind of the last point I wanted to make that you demonstrated beautifully in your presentation was how powerful data visualization was for all of this data that you had. The charts and the interactive charts that you made really brought home the point you were trying to make. So it's, reams and reams of this traffic data that would be difficult to understand in a spreadsheet. I thought you did a great job, and I just wanted to commend you for it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Mom, can you corroborate this resilience?
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
Very much so. Yes, night and day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, we'll go to Dr. Mukamal.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Dylan, I thought you spoke so eloquently and clearly and compellingly. I just echoing Dr. Yancey with that. I'm really taken by how you narrated the process, not only for your mastery project, but also for all the other projects throughout your different informatics courses. You were really focused not just on the product, but the process and the learning outcomes, which made the presentation, I think, a lot stronger in terms of providing us with a narrative of your journey to your mastery project, so we could better understand why you chose to do what you did and how that the previous experiences informed the decisions you made with the traffic-based project in particular. Let's see, I have notes and I'm trying to go in order. I was really impressed, to be completely honest, with your really fast learning curve into Tableau. This is a really difficult software to use. And I'm really impressed again with your resilience and resourcefulness with figuring that out. I would like to ask you a little bit more about the challenges that you encountered with using Tableau, and I'm curious in particular if there were any resources that you used, or was it really a process of trial and error? Did you find tutorials or YouTube videos, and how did you kind of navigate using, sort of importing the data into the software and using it? So that's my main question, and then I have a suggestion for you about the output.
So this project was not my first time using Tableau. We did use it for a project in Informatics 3 last semester with real estate data, so I already had experience in how to import that data. what we did use, we used Google to look up how to fix some errors we encountered, like how to import like a large data set so it would load, and how to connect those data sets so it would show the right information, and like creating the connections between the data so it would allow us to use that. I also had to, during the mastery, I had to experiment with the colors. I had to like drag a measure into where it says color. So
Exactly.
I had to figure out how to do that, because at first I was just changing every bar, like with the net change.
Oh no, manually.
Yeah, I needed the green at the top. I mean, the bars at the top to be green, and then the one at the bottom to be red.
Talk about your classmate as a resource.
Yes. So Mason, he used Tableau for his senior mastery so he had a lot of experience with that, and like he created a whole data storytelling project in Tableau. So he helped me figure out which measures to put in which place, how to use those colors, and looking into using a story in Tableau, which I did not end up doing, but I did experiment with that.
Yeah, thanks. That's actually related to the suggestion that I had for, I guess, kind of two suggestions. One is directly related to the mastery, and then the second is I went to Duke for my undergrad, so I have like a couple of thoughts to share with you, or unsolicited advice. But my suggestion related to the way that you might proceed with this project if you wanted to create kind of like a living public version of the results of the project, which I encourage you to do, because you framed your reasoning for creating these visualizations so I think provocatively as ways of convincing a policymaker to actually do something about the data. And I like this because it shows that it's really not just an intellectual enterprise for you or a learning process. Like, it could actually influence policy and improve outcomes for Horry County. So I suggest that over the summer in your free time before you start college, I think you should create a website with the data visualizations and with a kind of narrative. You could even include this presentation, the recording of it there too, embedded. But there are ways of embedding the visualizations directly from Tableau. You could pull the embed code, the HTML code, and put it into any website. So you could take each visualization individually, or you could embed the entire interactive dashboard that you created. So I think that would be really cool, kind of like a living project for your resume and portfolio as you start with your math and comp sci double major. And my suggestion, I don't know how welcome this is going to be, but I was also a double major at Duke. I was English and Spanish, so two completely different departments. And because I was a double major, there were a lot of requirements for both of those majors, and so I didn't have a lot of wiggle room in terms of electives. So anticipating that this might also be something you encounter with a double major, I highly encourage you to be really expansive and open-minded in terms of which courses you take as your electives. I would go as far away from math and comp sci as possible and take some classes in like psychology, sociology, especially since you were kind of interested in behavioral economics. I just think that we tend to get like really disciplinarily siloed, especially when we have a really strong interest. But I think, knowing, like, I took a class in energy policy at Duke, and that was really far from my majors, but I'm really glad I did, because I actually learned to use data visualization software in that class that now translates to the job I have like over a decade later. So just keep an open mind with your elective courses and ask around for recommendations. And yeah, I'm so excited for you. Thank you for having me and us on your panel.
Thank you. I did want to say, on my Google site, I did embed my Tableau dashboard onto the site where it says interactive dashboard, so you can actually change the filters on there. Perfect.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't see that yet. Good idea.
So I'll wrap it up real quick. I've asked all the hardball questions in rehearsal, so nothing there. But two quick questions. Number one, how do you punish an AI?
That I did not look into specifically. I think that it could communicate with the AI saying, "Hey, this reduced
this is bad.
This increased the wait time, so don't do this.
So you don't kick it or
No,
throw
don't
things
kick
at
it,
it.
but communicate with it.
I must have just, I don't know if you used that wording in rehearsal or not, or maybe I didn't land on me the same way, but it made me laugh that you're going to punish the AI. My big question for you is, do you feel vindicated now in your road rage?
Yes. I'm glad that I could find a topic that annoys me and represent that data to prove my point and actually do something with it.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was the question, I kept saying, what do you care about? What do you love? Whatever. And I believe it was the question, what annoys the mess out of you, that actually finally got a reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how we got to traffic. You've said it all. There's really not much more to say. I agree entirely. I remember the first day that I met you and Mason at the junior orientation, which happens again tomorrow night. And I knew it was a very small class, and all I could think was, wow, it's going to be so quiet, because Mason had nothing to say, you had nothing to say, there's a lot of staring, and I was like, oh man, this might be a long 2 years. But and I also remember the first time you got up to give a presentation, which was the first time I heard you say more than 5 words in a row, and you were instantly, I mean, I'll use Dr. Mukamal's word, you were instantly eloquent, and I was blown away. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, wait, is this you at home? And he was like, oh, I'm so much louder than this at home. And that made my heart happy, because I was like, you're way too smart and interesting to keep it all to yourself all the time. So it's been a real joy and a pleasure to get to know that guy a little bit more at school this year. And I've really appreciated that. It is really easy, I think, to get so close to this stuff that you forget, and I think I said this earlier in rehearsal, but I'm going to reiterate it, that you forget how complex this is. Yeah. Like, I hope they're nodding on the screen that I'm not looking at, because this is super complex. And I know that there are times where you're thinking, yeah, but there's only 4 lines on this graph, and I didn't do all that much. But choosing the right 4 lines to support your position is massively important. It's almost like the only important thing, to be able to communicate your ideas and your needs and your wants for yourself personally and the world as clearly as you did when it's so complex is an amazing skill to have really a great grasp on at your age. Duke is not wrong. This is a good call to pick you, and I'm so excited for what's next for you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and when you make a lot of money, don't forget about me. All right, awesome. So thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. If you have any other feedback for Dylan, if you want to fill out his rubric, you can, but it's not mandatory. Although we loved getting them from you. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Just emailed it to you. Feel free to share.
Thank you. Bye.
So much. Congrats.
Awesome.
Good
You
job,
did it.
Dylan.
Can I tell you one tiny bad news now? My notification popped up near the middle and knocked it offline for just a